Yo, yo, what up? It's your proverbial boy here in New Orleans, Louisiana, and we're nearing the end. Yo, yo, what up? It's your proverbial...
Bring the ship up to broadcast depth. We're going in.
Hey, welcome to the Rational Male 101. You like the new music? Working on it. I am your host, ROLLO TOMASSI. Go. Hey guys, bring that down. You guys like that? I got one other one I'm working on. I might run the new one on Wednesday to see which one I want to go with. See, it's one of the benefits of being a musician as well as a writer. I'm a multi-talented kind of guy. You guys have probably figured that out by now. Hi, how's it going? It is Sunday. It is 2 o'clock. I've decided that I'm going to run this show at 2 p.m. Pacific time. It's 5 p.m. for probably most of you on the East Coast. I have to always. It's funny. I live on the West Coast, but I still live on the East Coast too, because I have to keep my head on that side of the country because that's really where all the time starts. If you're in Central Time, it's what 3 o'clock now, 4 o'clock now for you guys. Mountain Time is 3, so that's when I'm going to start. It seems to me like on a Sunday. Hopefully Sunday is a good day for you guys. I have decided that Wednesdays and Sundays are going to be my regular shows. Again, I've got some guests lined up for the month of March. March is going to be very busy for me, just so you guys know. I am again deep in the weeds with book 4 right now. I have begun the layout, so you guys, maybe that's good news for you guys. So that book, of course, will be about, working title is Religion, and unless I change my mind at the 0 hour, that's probably what it's going to be. So it will be the Rational Male Religion. So anyways, just to get things off the ground here, I'm going to do a show today about indignation. For my Sunday shows, since I started these with Pat Campbell way back, well, gosh, only a year ago, year and 3 months, 4 months ago, the decision I made back then was to do shows that were a little bit more remedial on Sundays. And by that, I mean that doing topics and ideas and just, things that sort of come to my mind, but usually stuff that is, I think, core material. When I have when guys ask me about my books, I usually tell them, they ask me, is there any kind of reading order that you need to read the books in? And I always say, well, you should always start with number 1, because number 1 is kind of the core works. It's the one that really got everything off the ground. If you know anything about the history of my writing and how I came to do what I do, book number 1 was only ever going to be one book. I wasn't an author. I just I had people request to put out a book, and I tried to cram it full of as much content and then what I thought was important as possible. And back then it was just going to be sort of a alternate revenue stream, I guess. It was just something I did on the side, passive revenue, I guess is what you would call it, but had no intention of it being, what it is today, which is a lot of people recognize it as the Bible of the red pill. So I'm happy to say that's how things played out. But then, of course, in the meantime, or after that, I did book 2 and book 3. So people always ask me, what's the first one? Nobody. That's the first one. So that's really kind of what this show is dedicated to, is the material that's in the first book. And I did on Wednesday, I did a 2-hour podcast, 2-hour live stream here. And again, I am taking questions for this one as well. But if it's on topic, that's cool. I'll read it. If it's off topic, I've got Sam Bada is taking. Are you? Yeah, you are. Sorry, I just got your text, Sam. So, anyways, yeah. So I will answer your super chats if they are off topic towards the end of the show. So keep them on topic, and I'll read them right out the gate or not. But again, this show is dedicated to just I don't. Gosh, I hate to call it remedial, because for a lot of people, this is new stuff, man. This is they've just picked up my book, and or they've just discovered what we call the red pill with respect to intersexual dynamics, anyways. And they got a lot of questions. So this is where I'm hopefully addressing those things. But I was going to say is on Wednesday, I did a 2-hour podcast dedicated to the topic of dread. And as I said in the very beginning of that podcast, dread is probably not a good term to use for that concept, but it is what it is. And that's where we go with it. A lot of people don't like that kind of terminology. There's a lot of one of the most common complaints, I guess, I get, particularly from women, is that, Rollo, this stuff is really great stuff, but you need to change your tone. How can, the words you choose aren't nice words. Dread is not a nice word. Competition, anxiety. Why would anxiety be anything positive? Gosh, I'm trying to think of some other ones. I get criticized a lot for tone, but the problem is this: is first of all, we're dealing with concepts that are in some cases not very polite. Indignation is one of those, and that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about indignation. Now, I don't usually do requests. Usually, I put together a show or a podcast or even an entire book based on what I think, or really I want to do. I write the books that I want to read, and I think that other people want to read as well, but also what I think people need to hear. And like, I like to connect dots, as you guys already know that. But so when I first set out on a topic, whether it's for this show or if it's for, for my essays, it's not like, oh, well, what do you guys want to hear about? You're never going to hear me ask you that question. I'm not going to say, well, what is it that my fans want to hear? If I was a musician, okay, maybe I would do that, but I'm not a musician. I'm a writer, and I'm a thinker, and I'm a dot connector. And that's as blunt as I can put it. And sometimes those ideas are, I don't want to say offensive, but they are things that people don't necessarily want to connect. They don't want to connect those dots. They don't like that. Well, maybe it's offensive, but it's uncomfortable, and it makes people uncomfortable. And I don't want to say I'm here to afflict the comfortable and comfort the afflicted, I guess, but I have to just sort of get it out there. And sometimes that requires redefining terms. Sometimes that requires using terms that might not sound nice. Even the word nice, like nice guy. What's a nice guy? Oh, I'm nice all the time. Girls like me, and I got laid, right? I'm a nice guy. We'll talk about that a little bit later today too. But it's one of those Manospherean terms, right? It's one of those, it's like alpha and beta. We have to clarify terms for everybody so we can move on to some more complex ideas. Dread is one of those things. Indignation is another one of those things. So you're just going to have to, it is what it is. You're going to have to bear with it, because this is, if you can think of a nicer way of saying things, I'm all about it, right? When I talk about how women approach, I talked about this like 2 weeks ago. When men and women approach love, we approach it from different concepts. So when I say, men tend to approach love idealistically, when women approach love opportunistically. What do you mean opportunistically? Opportunistically? How can, oh, that's terrible. Rollo's, he says that women are evil or women can't love. No, that's not what I'm saying. I was like, again, it's for lack of a better term. If you can think of another, like, go get your thesaurus out. If you can think of a better term than opportunistic that describes women's innate tendency to, either marry up or bang up or hypergamy doesn't seek its own level. It seeks at or above its own level. If you can come up with a better term, even hypergamy itself, like people will criticize me about, well, you use hypergamy in the wrong tense or the wrong way, because hypergamy means something I heard in a sociologist's book, or I read in an anthropology book, or I know where the term hypergamy comes from. Guess what? It's 2020. I'm redefining that. Okay, I'll be happy to say I'll take the hit. Hit me on the here you go. I'll take the hit. It's okay. You can redefine terms. We can broaden terms. It's the English language. It's communication. So if I say alpha or beta or AFC, or the Manosphere is so jingoistic. It's so they have their own acronyms and everything. It's not hard to understand. The acronyms are there. You ask me, I'm happy to tell you. If you read my essays, if I use the letters SMP, it's sexual marketplace. I usually use that somewhere in the essay before I start saying SMP or SMV, sexual market value. Alpha, beta. Well, you think that alphas are alpha wolves on the Arctic tundra, or you think that they're silverback gorillas. No, that's you dismissing it because you don't like the term. Again, tone. So when I talk about indignation today, just keep that in mind, because indignation is probably an imperfect term for this. Hypergamy is an imperfect term, really, for what it describes, which is women's innate mating strategy. I still haven't figured out what I should, I need if you guys can help me out with this would be great. When I talk about men's innate mating strategy, I always say it's unlimited access to unlimited sexuality. If I could find a nice catch-all phrase for that, or a one-word term that would sort of get that across, I'd be happy to know what it is. But for right now, that's where I go with it. If there's a feminine imperative, there's a masculine imperative as well. So whatever works for, when I talk about the feminine imperative, it means whatever is in the best interest of women from a biological standpoint, sociological standpoint, psychological standpoint, whatever whatever is in a political standpoint, whatever is in the best interest of a, we could call, I hate using gynocentrism too, by the way. I know, I mean, it's a good term, but it's funny, is before I heard the word gynocentrism, I was, and that's another word that's been sort of made up to have a meaning, right? Before I heard that, I was using this term. I would call gynocentrism, I would say, the feminine primary social order. And right now I use gynocentric social order in my essays because it's just something that's a little bit easier. And if you've been reading me long enough, you know what I mean. But when people come into what I write, what the red pill's about, intersexual dynamics from I guess a Manospherian perspective, I think what happens is people listen to these words and they fill in the blanks for themselves. They think that if I say women's concept of love is opportunistic, then they lose their minds. Oh my God, he hates women. He must be a misogynist. No, it's really just, I'm being as clinical and as objective as I possibly can with that. Give me a better word. Is there a better word I can use? I'll be happy to use it. But in this case, we're going to be talking about indignation, and indignation needs some clarification and some definition here. And like I said before, I don't usually take requests, but I had some people asking me about indignation, and I think it sort of came in the wake of me describing what dread was on Wednesday. And as predicted, it got misconstrued. The moment you even say the word dread, it's, oh, well, these guys are just manipulative assholes. I made damn sure that I said that dread is not necessarily always about, oh, crush her soul. Yeah, that's so awesome. Just make her think you're going to leave anytime. No, that's not what I said. That's not it. That's not what dread is. Okay. Dread is a fear of loss, for sure. It can be, but that's by order of degree. So it's not like, yeah, that's why, in fact, I tried to be as succinct as I possibly could about what overt dread was as opposed to what passive dread was. Third party dread, I've always said, and will say once again, that is more preferable than you stepping on top of, keep her under your thumb, man. That's dread. No, that's not dread, asshat. So if you want to know what dread is all about, really, there's 2 hours I just did about 4 days ago that you can go and get a better idea of it. So the first thing I'm going to do today is clarify what I mean by indignation. Indignation is, I believe I have it. It's in the first book. And the reason I included it in the first book is because indignation was something that I came across, or was a concept. I think we started debating on this old SoSwab forums. Back in the mid 2000s, I think. I want to say it was like 2006, 2007. And it was back the time when I think the Tyra Banks show was on, and women loved the Tyra Banks show. And or it was Sally Jesse Raphael. Do you remember that daytime talk show? Or Oprah's another one, of course. That's an easy one. I remember my water today, sorry. And so a lot of guys had this same question, and the question was this: they'd say, Rollo, why is it that women seem to love drama so much? It's almost like a defining characteristic for women is drama, to like make up something if there's nothing to feel weird about, or nothing to feel something about. Why is it that it's this constant state of drama? Or like guys would ask me, I don't even have women ask me, why is it that women love romance novels so much? If you go and they're very formulaic, they're all basically the same story. And if they don't follow that same formula, then they tend to be unsuccessful romance novels. Well, why is that? Why is that such a popular genre of literature? And it's been around for a very long time. I mean, we're talking at least since the 40s or 50s. I mean, technically, you could go back to Emily Bronte and was it Jane Eyre and whatever, and that is where really the formula began. But it is a satisfying story for women to read, to at least put themselves into that role. And then you can also fast forward that up to, of course, 50 Shades of Grey. Add sex to that formula and you get 50 Shades of Grey. It was for a while, I think I recall reading that 50 Shades of Grey outsold the Bible for the first like 3 months that it was out, and it was that popular. And of course there was some sequels to that, but none of them really outdid the first one. It was really 50 Shades of Grey, and I am only aware of it from, I didn't see the movie, I haven't read the book, I only know what the synopsis is, because I'm not going to spend my time reading 50 Shades of Grey, thank you very much. But I have read the wiki of it, and I basically have had the cliff notes, so let's just, so I do know what I'm talking about with respect to the formula that's in there. And it's very easy to understand because it was the same formula for Twilight. Twilight was one of these stories where the main character, the female in the main character, could be anybody, and it's deliberately written from the perspective that any woman reading it, and let's be honest, it's written for women. It's not written for teenage boys. It was originally written for teenage girls. And you've got a vampire. Like, can we bring back like really horrific vampires, please? Can we like bring back like Bram Stoker's Dracula, like where they turn into like beasts instead of these, Interview with the Vampire, Anne Rice type vampires. But the stories are written formulaically because the audience doesn't change, or the ideals of that audience doesn't change. So you can go from Twilight to 50 Shades of Grey, and I will guarantee you, probably within the next decade, when things have died down a little bit, and people like a next generation or a half a generation has sort of forgotten about those stories, there'll be another one, and it will follow exactly the same formula. Well, why? What is it about that triggers that? What is it about romance novels that triggers that? A lot of people want to make romance novels sort of the equivalent of pornography for women, and in a way, I guess it is, because it's similarly addicting. Same thing as really social media is pretty much like online porn for women. It's just it's just a different stimulus, I guess. It stimulates women and addicts women in the same way that pornography could. I'm not, again, jury's still out on all this, but I've said this before, is that social media and certainly romance novels could be considered pornography for women. Women can get addicted and live in it because it's that fantasy. It's they want to be there. What did you ask me? What do you think being in an LTR with BB2? We'll talk about that later, Math Boy. If you want to stay on topic, I have talked about that in the past. So why is it? Why do women want drama? A lot of guys will tell me, like, and this is back when I was on So Suave, they will say, well, Rollo, I go and I solve problems all day. I'm at work, I solve problems. I don't want to come home and have to solve even more problems because something happened at my wife's work and she wants to tell me all about it. And, they'll complain about walking through the door and being just assaulted by family life, like, oh, or God forbid, and I know this firsthand too, because I have a daughter. If they have daughters, or there's something that's going on in the house, if you have daughters, if you're a husband or a father of daughters, somebody at any given day, somebody's crying in the house. For whatever reason. It could be a good cry, it could be a sad cry, but somebody's crying in the house. And after a while, you just kind of go, okay, whatever, you just sort of tune it out. But I think guys don't really understand women's psychological innate need for indignation. And that's where I went with my first essay about it. And this was back in 2012, I believe. And I called it Indignation. And it ended up, I believe I put it in the first book. But why is that? My quote, my lead-in quote from that essay was, in the absence of indignation, women will actively manufacture indignation for themselves. And again, this came from discussions in the old So Suave forums about, well, first of all, drama was what we were calling it, but why is it that women seem to make their own gossip? Why is gossip, like, why is gossip a persistent thing for women? Shit, I mean, even like in the Bible, it's talking, God hates a gossip or something. I'm not a biblical scholar, but I know that even the word gossip is in the Bible. So it's been around for a while. It's women's nature is to gossip, is to find out, getting secret information. I wanted to talk a little bit. I probably will dedicate a full show to this, but this goes back to the feminine mystique. And if you've ever read Robert Greene's, it's not his best book, but if you've ever read Art of Seduction, in the introduction to Art of Seduction, he explains how, because women are the weaker sex, and because they have been I don't want to say sublimated, but since they have been the more, let's just say the more powerless sex over the years, women have had to find covert means to access power. And one of those is to find secret information, is to use intrigue, to spy, right? To be suspicious, to, I'm trying to think of some other words here, but again, today is going to be the episode of finding the right adjective or adverb for these things. But why is it, why is it that gossip is a thing? Why is it that daytime talk television is such a big deal? Romance novels, those things. Well, it's innate to women's nature to want to have secret information. That's why we call it the feminine mystique. And women for countless generations have reinforced the idea that women are unknowable. We talk about women as if they're these enigmas. In fact, we will, even in our mythology, we will make them forces of nature, like the dryads or the nymphs or the tempests. Like women were always the nature spirits. They were always something that was like random and fickle and but still powerful. But it was always something unknowable. And I think that part of the feminine mystique that has been, a part of human society, ever since we became a little bit more civilized, I think it has worked in women's best interests that men don't know about women. that they don't get it, that they don't even ask the questions. And God forbid you're a guy, God forbid you're Rollo Tomassi and you say, hey, I think I got a few things figured out. What do you think about this? For a guy, for a guy to say, oh, I know a thing or two about women. To say that means you're a misogynist. Like in this day and age, for sure. I mean, even before, you might get laughed at. It was just a part of you being sort of this masculine idiot. It was part of that. It was certainly the narrative that cropped up in the late 60s. Well, I don't say late, early 70s, all the way up to where we are now. You're a ridiculous man, and don't try to understand women. Don't even ask the questions, because you'll never know, little boy. You know, women are enigmas. Women are forces of nature. And if you ask those questions, it just means that you're that much bigger an idiot for asking those questions. And so what does that do? What's the effect of that? Is you get generation after generation of guys who go, well, I guess I don't know. I guess we'll never figure out women, or we'll have some idioms, or have some sort of maxims about women. And of course, women will say, well, those are just sexist maxims or whatever. And you know, sort of rules to live by. But I think progressively, really since the sexual revolution, it's been impolite to ask those questions, or it's been impolite to draw conclusions about women's nature. And so when I ask a question, when I say, what is it about women's nature that makes them naturally interested in gossip, naturally interested in secrets, naturally interested in intrigue? What is it about women's innate, psyche that makes that appealing to them? And again, I'll probably talk about the feminine mystique in a upcoming podcast or something at some point. But indignation, I think, is part of that. It's a part of female existence that I don't think is very flattering for most women, or it's usually not. When a woman finds out that her suspicions are confirmed, then she's very proud. But when they're not, it becomes a part of her nature that's very unflattering, that she certainly doesn't want a guy connecting dots or asking questions about. So keep that in your mind for a second. I'm trying to stay hydrated for this one, because we're going to talk. Okay, so indignation itself. Why is drama a part of that nature? What is it about drama that makes, well, even young girls, inclined to want to know, the sex lives of other people, or to know? I mean, remember, indignation, I should clarify this first. Indignation is not just about gossip. It's not just about learning something or knowing something that you should not know, kind of thing. Indignation is a feeling, I believe. And this is me theorizing here, so you just bear with me for a minute. I actually do have some stats here a little bit later. We'll get to those. But I think what indignation really is it's almost a chemical need for women to feel alive, really, to feel that rush that comes with Delilah gossiped about Samson's hairdo. Yeah, she did. But it's the thrill that comes from that. And I think that when women are younger, that need for indignation is something different than when a woman is older and she's already had kids and she's living a sort of a domestic lifestyle. I'm sure you guys have all heard stories of guys. Maybe you've experienced this yourself, where you've been with your wife, or you've been with a girlfriend, and she wants to go out with her girlfriends. She wants to go on a girls' night out, even though she's been with you for like 3 or 4 years. She wants to go out with her girlfriends, or she lives what we say vicariously through her girlfriends. Or if you have a wife and she is the mother of your daughter, a lot of guys will say that their wives live vicariously through the lives of their daughters. Because what happens is, if, like I said before, in the absence of indignation, women will create indignation for themselves. That's how you get things like what the Tyra Banks show. That's how you get things like gosh, The Bachelor, right? That's how you get things like Love Island. That's why those are so popular. If you go and you look at TV today is really for women. Even the Super Bowl is kind of for women right now. There's always the female sensibilities that are always taken into consideration before we create a commercial, before we write a book, before we do anything. It's something I think that a lot of guys do unconsciously, because it's just the way they've been acculturated. It's just been the way they've been raised up. But there are certain things that are going to be indignation inspiring that are always going to be profitable. So when we talk about guys who, I'm sure you've heard this term as well, like sex sells, right? So we know what works for guys. We need a half-naked chick to sell our beer. We need a half-naked girl to sell this car. We need sex in some way to turn this guy on so he'll buy a Harley Davidson. We need to find some way. Well, it's really easy with guys because that everybody knows that's our primal interest. That's what we want. Again, unlimited access to unlimited sexuality. And if we can pair that drive, that innate drive, up to consumerism, no, that's how we do it. It's easy with guys, and maybe alcohol. I don't know. How do you do that with women? Particularly because women are the primary consumer in Western societies. They control more money. They have more money. They spend more money. We're getting to the point where they're going to make more money soon. But as far as the purse strings are concerned, women are in pretty much 90% control over spending in the United States for sure. And I think probably in the UK and other Western societies as well. How do you appeal to them? How do you get them to buy something? Well, you make them feel something. This is what early PUAs figured out. This is what, if you ever go and you look at any of the old RSD videos, the ones that were good, the basic premise of running game on women back in the day, pickup artist game in the day, was to leave them with an emotional impression. And it didn't matter whether that impression was good or it was negative. It didn't matter. As long as she felt something, as long as there was an emotional spike that she had to feel or that she's going to associate with you from that memory, that was what you're trying for. A lot of times, particularly in the early days, most PUAs would, they'd play games, right? They would say, okay, well, we're all going to go out there and we're going to try to get shot down. And that was, of course, an exercise in trying to get guys really to just sort of get out of their shell and go and get over their approach anxiety. That was the basic premise of it. But it also had the effect of getting these guys used to creating an emotional spike in these women. Now, whether it was good or was bad is irrelevant. And I know for a lot of guys, they're saying, well, don't you want her to feel good about you? Well, if you can, sure, that'd be awesome. But if you leave that woman with, if she's attracted to you or she's aroused by you and you leave her with a negative impression, she's still going to have an impression. She's still going to, there's still something to unravel. There's still a mystery to solve. And then you're leaving her with a sense of indignation, which is, I can't believe he said that to me. Oh, I can't wait. Well, when I see him again, I'm going to tell him this. When I see him again, good. Made the impression. How do I get you to buy? I don't know if you guys are familiar with a evolutionary psychologist. Is what I think is one of the best. If you want a good read, and he's a really, really funny, personable guy, is God Sod. And I have subscribed to him for a long time on YouTube. I've tried to interact with him just, online, but he's a rock star, man. He's a rock star of evolutionary psychology. If Marty Hazelton is sort of a minor league rock star, he's probably a major league rock star, David Buss. But God Sod is great, man. He's really, really personable. But I don't know what his new book is going to be about, but his last book was about how evolutionary psychology inspires consumerism. And it was a very popular book because, as you might guess, a lot of businesses want to know how best to sell. They want to find some way to keep you locked in. Just like, I forget who was saying it. I think it was Jaron was his name, Jaron Lannister, I think is what his name is, kind of the dreadlock hippie guy. He was saying that there companies like Facebook, and you've certainly Google, certainly YouTube, certainly Twitter, hire psychologists for their team to figure out how to make their social interactions and social media that much more addicting. So it plays on the same kind of, I guess, dopamine hit. Or I don't want to call it dopamine, because the dopamine is just a precursor to the good endorphins that come along. But for lack of a better term, a dopamine hit that is very similar to gambling addicts. So, and I know something about that because I've worked for companies where I've actually worked for the largest company that produces video poker and video slot machines and things like that. And I know the mechanics behind that. And I know that a lot of, what you got here? Don't worry, Mr. Highway, we'll take care of you. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of psychology that goes to selling. Well, again, easy to sell to guys because of the sexual, and we got that figured out. It's pretty easy. But how do you sell to women? Well, you leave them with a similar emotional spike. Same thing that the early pickup artists figured out. So you can use, and I was going to get to this a little bit later, but you can definitely use indignation, women's innate need for indignation, as a game leverage, as a game tactic. Certainly, it's already been used. Heck, we were talking about that back in 2006, 2007. But my focus on it right now, and I should probably write an essay about it. I probably should write a new essay, because the one that I wrote was just sort of a cursory, I guess, appraisal of what indignation was and why it exists. And I'll just start off on a few things here about what I think we need to separate the idea that drama is necessarily indignation. There is a need for indignation, and drama is the means to get to that indignation. So when a lot of guys think that, well, indignation is the same thing as drama. Well, yeah, but they're attached at the hip. But I think that drama is something that women will initiate in order to get the feelings and the chemical rush that comes from indignation. And that's where I was going to go next. And I'm sort of following my essay here, is that indignation is a need, I think, a psychological need for most women, for if not all women, certainly most women. I think it starts early in childhood development for women, and it progresses into something that is a little bit more advanced, or something that's I think it's probably more satisfying for women because they're older and they're, I think it becomes a little bit, indignation becomes a little more refined. I was watching I was reading an article today about I think it was the writer who wrote for Sex and the City, and or maybe it was maybe the author, female author, was writing about it and how it was influential in her life back during the mid 2000s, and how now it's 2020, and all of the glamour and all the crap and all the stuff that was being promoted at that time in Sex and the City, a very indignation inspiring show, whatever, was influential in developing a generation of women to be what they are today. And we're joking about this right now. I saw Paul Joseph Watson's video about, no eggs, right? Where we're laughing at women right now because they're, getting to be 40. And this is the generation that was following the Sex and the City, format for their lives. And now they're getting to a point in their lives where, either they can't have kids anymore, or they wish they would have taken a different turn. But you can't tell women don't want to be told shit. Even to this day, they don't want to be told shit. I mean, imagine this. Imagine me going back in time to 2007 or whatever it was and saying, hey, you know what? Sex and the City is probably going to lead you down a really dark path, and you're probably going to get to be about 40 years old, and you're going to regret doing living according to this indignation inspiring plan. Women would lose their mind. Oh, you're just a sexist. Imagine being so insecure as a man that you would think that this show would be anything other than just fine entertainment for women. Okay, well, here we are. I'm not here to scold women. I'm just saying that the dynamic of having to like I said, women don't want to be told shit. So connecting these dots, I can see how, about indignation is something that's very unflattering and something that they don't really want to hear about. But what is it? What is it about women's nature that they have to feel this way? Well, it's primarily, I think, a chemical thing. I think it's something in women's brains. I don't know for sure, but I would say that there is I know that feelings of indignation inspire certain endorphins, inspire certain, like or they are the result, I guess, of certain endorphins. When you go and you look at shows where you've got like a guy who is confessing that he cheated on his wife, or a woman has suspicions. I think that's one of the more, this is like low hanging fruit to define what indignation is. Indignation is a whole lot more refined than this, but to hear something about someone else and then to have confirmation of that suspicion is very satisfying for women. And so when you go and you look at like like Maury Povich or something, and the girl is trying to cuckold one of the guys and saying, it's not your baby. Like, remember those shows? It's the Not Your Baby show. Those are very indignation inspiring. I'm not saying guys don't, might not watch that as well, but I mean, let's be honest. The target demographic for those shows is women, particularly daytime talk shows, particularly Oprah, particularly the old school talk shows. Now I think it's really sort of switched over to The Bachelor and all that other good stuff. But Bachelorette, I guess. I'm not really sure. It's funny is like in any other situation, like I realize, hear me out on this. The Bachelor, The Bachelorette, yes, they're scripted. There's too much money changing hands over that show for it not to be scripted, but it's being scripted based on the idea that indignation is something that needs to be inspired in women. And what demographic is talking about The Bachelor and The Bachelorette? Women, primarily. I can't believe he said that to her. So there's almost it gives, like, shows like that give women license to live vicariously through the characters, or through the guy who's going on, like Maury Povich, and giving his confessions. And it is the idea that a woman's suspicions and her feminine intuition was accurate in figuring out that he's actually a cheater. Or maybe it's the Cheaters show. I remember that show. Somebody was showing me somebody showed me this one video, and I wish I could dig it up right now, but they showed me this one video, and I think it was on one of those Cheaters shows. And the guy was a black dude, and probably about maybe 6 foot tall, definitely built, certainly had abs, certainly was a good looking black dude. And he was a painter, or he was doing something in the house. It was almost like the beginning of a porn movie or clip, whatever. And the woman was trying to throw herself at him, and they had secret cameras on him. And they're trying, basically the whole premise of the show is, you've got a boyfriend, let's put him into a position where he could cheat and be okay about it, and in a controlled environment. And will he cheat or will he not cheat? That is, again, low-hanging fruit, but that is indignation inspiring right there. What is this? What are you giving me here? Buff head, where you can also recommend where you're really dirty talk. Okay, we'll come back to that. Thanks, man. So the whole idea, the whole premise of the show is, will he cheat? Will he cheat? And they have the girlfriend of the guy backstage or somewhere at a secret location. She's watching everything transpire. And in this video in particular, the guy turns down the offer of sex, and the girl's a pretty good looking girl. She was ready to go and knock it out with the guy right there in the living room. I'm sure they probably would have stopped it before anything really happened. Ha ha, I caught you, you cheater. But he didn't. And then we turned out, but okay, so there's your indignation, but it's sort of this like double indignation, because later the girl who was the girlfriend of the black guy was crying, and I go, what's wrong? He was loyal to you, blah blah blah. Turns out she's actually the cheater. She's the one that says, I've cheated on my boyfriend. I feel so bad. He was so loyal to me, blah 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 blah. And now we got a double helping of indignation because of that. And that's what I mean, is that there is this want to feel this safety, this want to engage in what is inherently a dangerous thing, really a dangerous thing. And really, what is, it's the thrill of, human beings do this, but I'm applying this to like how women do this, which is they want to feel danger. They want to have the roller coaster. I've got a really, maybe I'll go read that. I got a really good quote from Dalrock about the roller coaster. And the roller coaster is just to paraphrase him really quickly, is that women want to feel the thrill of, being on a roller coaster and having it, go off the rails and have like this impending disaster. And then at the last minute, to have a parachute pop out, right? Or whatever, like suddenly everything's actually safe. But there's this desire to feel something, to be involved in that, to have that thrill of near death, but it is pulled back from the brink right at the edge. So I should probably go dig. I didn't have that one prepped, but what are you asking me here, Carl? It says, women try telling me about their emotional drama, and I tell them, I don't care. I don't want to hear it. My brain doesn't want to hear it. Yeah, I'm sure it doesn't, right? And I'll tell you why you don't want to hear it, Carl, is because you process emotion differently than women do. That's why. That's why guys don't want to even ask these questions. They're like, Rollo, why are you even bothering with this? Just don't even deal with it. Just tell them to go pound salt. Don't deal with the drama. Well, guess what? If you are in a relationship with a woman, to some degree, you're going to deal with drama, even if you are the one that is inspiring that drama. So yeah, you can say that. And I knew that was it's actually in my notes right here, is like, why do I care? Who cares? Let's give the standard MGTOW disclaimer here. Just don't do it. Just stay away from them. Okay, we're done. Now, if you're going to be with a girl, if you're going to engage with women, you're going to in some way deal with indignation, some kind of, whether she's manufacturing it for herself or you are the one that is supplying it. And that was my next thing down. When I was writing the essay on indignation, that's what I said. Is like, indignation is like a drug for women. They need it. It's something that they need to feel alive. So they're going to feel it through living vicariously through their girlfriends. If they can't directly feel it themselves, if they can't initiate it, if they can't be a part of it. If they can't do that, then they'll go watch a TV show about it. They'll read a romance novel about it. They have to feel there has to be some sort of stimulation of whatever the chemical cocktail is that's released into women's bloodstream that is prompted by indignation, a feeling of indignation. So yeah, I mean, Carl, it's easy to say, and I knew this was coming, and here's my notes. It's easy to just simply say, well, I'm just not going to deal with it. I'm not going to deal with it. I'm just going to go. Good for you. You can always go the stoic route. I'm not saying that that's not effective. But guess what? By you doing that, by you just saying, I'm not going to deal with that, well, what you going to do? If you're not the source of her indignation, or if you're not the source of the unpredictability, the roller coaster ride that I was just telling you about, if you're not that source, she's going to go find it from someone else. And I'm not saying she's going to go cheat on you. It might be as simple as, oh, I just started picking up on this new romance novel. I love these things. Okay, I can't get enough of them. And you're like, okay, I'm not going to deal with it. I'm going to go here and read the newspaper. No, it's you. You're going to be dealing with it at some point, or she's going to manufacture it for herself. She's going to get addicted to social media where her friends are feeding her this as well. Why do you think that there's forums full of women trying to figure out how to deceive their boyfriends, or one girl's boyfriend, into believing that she's pregnant, or into popping the question? It's what he should do. It's his masculine duty. So we're going to find out some tricky, sneaky way to make him think, that he should be doing this, or that he should be put a ring. You got to get a ring on it. Okay, well, but why are there forums dedicated to that? I've asked this question before, and in an old group of guys I did a podcast with, also I think Rule Zero as well. Why is it that there are black markets for positive pregnancy tests and forums that where women basically get together and collude to find the best way to get a guy to commit to a woman under false pretenses? Yet in the manosphere, we have guys trying to figure out how to be better versions of themselves, and how to be better, and how to be stronger, and how to deal with modern life, and how to socialize. And we want to be better dudes, while women are just trying to figure out contingencies and ways around. There are no forums that I am aware of that are in any way a parallel to what the Manosphere has brought to the table for a long time. And eventually guys say, okay, well, you know what? It's one thing to be a PUA. It's one thing to go and mouth the words and ape the behaviors, but it's much better to actually have the value that you're trying to ape. So let's try to do that. Okay. So eventually you transition from PUA into actually, possessing the value that you've been trying to pass off for yourself for a long time. There's no PUA for women. There's no, hey, how can we be better women for men? How can we be better, at cooking or fucking, or how do we be better? How do we be the best versions of ourselves, ladies? You're never going to see anything like that. And if you are, it will be inspired by a guy. It won't be inspired by women. Will not. Is not in women's thought process to get together and say, you know what, ladies, we need to be better for our men. We need to do something for the express pleasure of our men, because if we don't, then they'll never, want to be with us. That doesn't have, there's this entitlement to respect and this entitlement to a perfect life. Where does that entitlement come from? It comes from a need for indignation. It's for this desire to feel something about that. This deserving. Now I'm gonna move on a little bit for here, because I wanted to make sure that you guys understand that drama and indignation is part of the female experience, the female life experience. That's why Carl here doesn't understand this. I don't want to deal with it. Yeah, well, I don't either. But that's just how women are. And I think there's a mistake that guys make when they think that, well, gee, why can't a woman be more like a man? Think like a man and talk like a man and say what you mean and mean what you say. Well, if she did that, she'd be a dude. Okay. Because that's why you might as well be gay and get your rocks off and just deal with dudes all day long. Because that's women's experience, is to live in indignation, to want to want to feel something. I was also going to say, it's funny. I was in church today, actually, and I was coming to this conclusion. I think that the church, I've been going to a lot of churches lately just to sort of get an idea of how those churches, mainstream churches, do their services and what is their approach. And pretty much every single Christian church that I went to, with the exception of a Baptist church, it felt very feminized. It felt very feelings. Everything's about feelings. We got to feel. It's like feels before reals. I think Dr. Everett Piper has talked about this before. It's like he talks about this in a political sense, of course. And the more women that we get into politics, the more feelings and emotionalism and the consideration of compassion for others and all this good stuff. It's much more feminine based. It's the same thing I was thinking before, and so it led me to this conclusion, but it led me to this idea that the female experience is about their emotional processing. So I've said, if you haven't read these essays, they're really, really good. I thought, this is coming from me. Some of the best essays and I will tell you, the best essays that I've written were the Instinct, Emotion, and Reason series, and there's 4 of them. And the first one is called Instinct, Emotion, and Reason, and then you can go from there and read the rest of them. But I break down the interpretive process of most healthy functioning human beings, and that is instinct, emotion, and reason. And for women, that is the process. That's the sequence, which is they process things instinctually, then they process them emotionally, and then maybe they get to reason and rationality. For men, it's the opposite way. They instinctively, we always instinctively, interpret our surroundings. So if I threw a ball at your head, that's your instinct, right? That's your autonomous, instincts. It's your survival instincts. Those are pretty much instincts. Then there is emotion and reason. Well, for men, it goes from instinct to reason or rationality, and then to emotion. The problem is we've built a society that is based on instinct, emotion, and reason. That's the female way of doing it. So the correct way to emote, the correct way to deal with your issues is to deal with them as a woman would, not as a man. Because men and women biologically and neurologically and psychologically process emotions differently. Proven fact. Get over it. The blank slate is bullshit. But So I'm thinking about this. I'm thinking, well, it's this feely experience thing, and really, that's the disconnect, Carl, because you don't understand those things. Why do we have different ways of expressing ourselves? Why is men's preferred communication overt, meaning mean what you're saying or say what you mean, right? Well, for women, it's covert. It's like they infer things from nuance, and communication is actually a very pleasurable experience for women, is to get together for coffee and just to talk, because the act of talking, the feelings that come out of that conversation is the point of the conversation. For men, it's information. So if I get together with Carl and I go, hey, we're going to fix this car. What's wrong with the car? I don't know. It's got a flat tire. Hey, go get some air. So you go through a process and you communicate what we're doing. And maybe through the process of doing something, like was it women talk, men do. Through the process of using our rational, reasonable minds, then we get to the point where it's like, oh, well, you have some sort of communication at that point. It's not about the actual communication. For women, it's different. Indignation comes from that emotional response. It's part of that feeling. It's wanting to feel something. And especially if a woman has felt those feelings before and she wants to get back to those feelings. So when I talk about alpha widows, for instance, like women who get with their ideal lover or whatever when they're in their college years, like she's 22, 23 years old, something like that. Then she gets to be 30 and she marries kind of like the boring beta guy. The guy that she was with, this 5 minutes of alpha trumps 5 years of beta. The guy that she was with back when she was in her 20s inspired feelings that even the memory of those feelings can still inspire the biological response. So when you go, like for instance, when you go see a horror movie or scary movie, something that inspires fear in you, it's your brain doesn't, I mean, you're seeing it virtually, of course, but your brain doesn't know the difference between, you being in a life or death situation and then translating that, the biological response to the rest of your body. Right. So that's why we go, because we want to feel fear. Oh, the alien, we want to feel something that comes from that. We want to feel alive. Right. Well, think about it in those terms. Like, so when a woman is remembering things, that's one of the things about PTSD is like even the memories of a traumatic experience can have a repercussions, physical, biological repercussions in that person right then and there, just from the memories, because the body and the mind are connected, of course, but they don't realize that it's not really happening. It's okay. It was just a loud noise, right? You don't have to go hide under the bed. We're like, oh my God, what's wrong with this guy? But the thing is like, that's not how the brain works. So if that's true for like something like PTSD or going and watching a horror movie, how true is it for a woman who remembers fondly the Brazilian helicopter pilot she had sex with when she was 22 years old? Inspires those same kind of things. So what happens is you've got women wanting to get back to that part in their life, that place in their life where they experience that. And how do they do that? Well, they manufacture it for themselves. They do it through movies. They do it through books. They do it through TV shows. Maybe they live vicariously through their daughters. Whatever. They want to get back to that biological response. And usually it's inspired by something that they're thinking of, that connection. Guys don't really understand that, because we process emotions differently. Our experience as men is different than women. Got it? Good. Okay, moving on. What else do I got here? Excuse me 1 second. Sam, I'm trying to keep track. Thanks for giving me a lift here. I think I got everything. Let's see. Oh, there it is. Nexus, thank you for that. $4.99. You the man. Thank you. No Name says, does indignation inspire arousal? I'm glad you asked this one, because this is actually one of the points on my list here. It can. It just depends on what it's paired with. So you can have indignation in sort of like the third party. So just because a guy is, let's just hypothetical situation. You got a guy who's on a daytime talk show, and the girl and the guy, like Dr. Phil has done this a million times, right? So the girl's sitting there and the guy's there, and the guy cheated on the girl and says, why did you cheat on the girl? And he's playing white knight and everything. And so the source of indignation is really the guy sitting that has been found out. You are the cheater. You did something wrong to hurt this woman. And by this woman, I mean associated and connected to all womankind. So why did you do that? Women love that because they love to see that guy on the spot. Now, do they want to have sex with that guy? Probably not. I mean, unless he's like really hot or something like that. It doesn't have to necessarily be. I mean, sometimes it is. Have you seen these shows? I've seen these shows where they get I would love to do one of these too, but where they get a guy and a girl, and they used to go out together, like maybe like 2 or 3 years ago, and they sit them in a room and they talk. They talk about like, why did you break up with me? Why did I, well, because it was like, say it was like 3 years ago, and there's this back and forth. No guy is looking at this going, oh, that sounds like a great way to spend my 45 minutes of my life right here. Let's go. Women eat the shit up. They love that stuff. And in some cases, the guy might be attractive and the woman really would still get back with him, even after, like, say he cheated or she cheated, either way. Okay, so it's not mutually exclusive. I think that the best way I can answer this, No Name, is that it's not mutually exclusive, but it is sometimes paired with arousal. So I think that's probably the best way that I can put that. But I want to make one other illustration here too, because it sort of moves me to the next point, which is, so you've got the guy sitting in the chair and he's the one that's getting pilloried, right? He's the whipping boy. He's the guy that everybody, all the women, because if you go and you look at the audiences and all of these shows, it's pretty much 100% women. Let's just be honest. 100% women are there and they're, oh, I can't believe you would to do something like that. And I'll give you another example. Happened in 2015 on Dr. Oz's show. And we had Roosh sitting there in a chair playing up to be the whipping boy, to be pilloried. I don't know how much money he made off of that, to sit there and have fat women point their finger at him, but I hope it was a lot of money. I really do, because that was a prime illustration of indignation. That's how women want to feel. They want to get to that point. And so so can it be about arousal? Yes, it can. The other thing is that it's definitely associated with a chemical spike. So there are endorphins, and there's a chemical cocktail that goes along with the feelings that come like from indignation. Do I know this for sure? No, I don't. I would speculate that it's probably that way. I know that there are endorphins, and I know that there are hormones that are released in the body during arousal. I know that there are hormones and chemical cocktails that flow through your bloodstream when you're in a state of aggression, when you are in a state of depression, those things. So it would stand to reason, I think, that either indignation triggers those, or they are triggered by that release, or probably a combination. So I don't know of any research that has studied this, and I would doubt you would ever find any in a gynocentric social order, because it would be unflattering to figure out that women actually get off on indignation, because it is an unflattering aspect of female nature. So finding accurate data on that, I think, would be is probably increasingly more difficult, particularly now in the way academia is. So there is an evolutionary connection to all this, and the evolutionary connection, I think, is really more about the female existential fear. And so what is the female existential fear, Rollo? Well, thank you for asking. I have written probably 4 different essays on existential fear of men and women and selective breeding, and how those fears, men's mating strategy is really an adaptation to get around women's existential fear, and then vice versa for women as well. So let me catch up here really quickly. I've got, what did you got here, Cole? Do you wait for situations of indignation to come up, or do you create it? Ha ha ha. We're going to get to that here in just a second. How do you leverage it is what you're asking. Is it your role to resolve the tension created? What are examples of this? Okay. Really, Cole, I could probably point out a few different old school pickup artist techniques, game techniques, that would be, I think, indignation inspiring. A very obvious one is the neg hit, right? The backhanded compliment. What did he mean by that? Right? Well, I would know. Like, guys, for most guys, it's counterintuitive. That's why the neg hit was such a big thing back in like the early 2000s. Like women were upset about that, but they were upset because it actually worked. Because those things, that giving a woman a backhanded compliment and finding sort of psychological ways to make that woman qualify to the guy. Well, if you're a beta guy and you see a guy that does that, you go, oh, I would never do that to you, baby. I'm always honest. I'm always upfront. I wouldn't want you to feel any dread, right? Those, not inspiring, that kind of, guess what? All you're doing is boring that person. Was it love me, hate me, just don't forget me. And that's the basis of really, how do you leverage indignation? I'm not saying you have to go cheat on a girl. And like I said before, and I said this on Wednesday, that women don't want a guy to cheat, but they love a man who could cheat, who could go out there and do it. When you look at, like, when most guys look at and again, I'm going to use him as an illustration, but when most guys look at Andrew Tate's relationship with his 3 girlfriends, or 4, maybe it's 4 now, they look at that and they go, oh, that's so unhealthy. He's manipulating them. He must be a master manipulator. And he's just destroying their psyches and holding them down. And the fact of the matter is they're free to go anytime they want. They don't have to do anything like that. But why do they? But the thing that baffles these guys, why do they stay? They must be low self-esteem women. I don't know, low self-esteem women. He's their drug dealer. They get off on the indignation that he supplies to them. Because if you're not that, like, that's why I'm going to skip ahead here a little bit, because you asked me this. You need to become your girlfriend, the girl, your sergeant, one of your plates, however you're arranging your interactions with women, you need to be their drug dealer. And by that, I mean indignation as a drug, because what floods through their system when they feel indignation? Well, it's a chemical cocktail, not like when I have read, now this is scientific. I have read studies that show that the chemical cocktail that floats around in women's and men's bloodstream when they are lusting after a person, or they're quote unquote in love, the chemical signature of that, I guess whatever it is, the endorphins and dopamine, all that, is very similar to that of heroin. And it's hard to break. That's one of the reasons why guys, when they break up and they've had that steady reward, their body, their brain has that steady reward of whatever that dopamine hit was, or whatever the cocktail was that keeps them locked into wanting to bang this girl all the time. And then you take that away. Now you've basically taken away that junkie's fix. And it's hard. Imagine how hard it is to break a heroin addiction. Now, I'm not saying, she's just your heroin. Or I have a post. I have a post called Detox, where I go into the biological side of breaking up with a girl and why it's really difficult for guys. It's why is it easier for women to break up with men and move on than it is for men to break up with women? There's a lot. God damn it, man. Okay, I'm gonna have to write this in I have the great big book. Where's it? Here it is. This is, you guys have never seen this. This is the great big book of everything. You want to look inside this. You really want to see what's in this, but you're not. It's like the book of Magnus. It's a book of Rollo. Big book of everything. So I'm going to write that down there. I need to do a show on, I got to do a show on war brides for sure. But I got to do a show on detoxing from women and sort of pulling yourself away from what's really can be considered a chemical dependency. So breaking up with a woman, like guys will always tell me, oh, Rollo, I can't stand the thought. Here's your indignation. I can't stand the thought of her being with another guy, or her like banging another dude. I can't believe she's with that guy. I got to go kill him. That's the only solution is to go kill her and kill him. And then it has to happen, because that's the only way to make these bad feelings go away. They still won't. In fact, you'll be in a world of hurt because you did. But why are guys inspired to something as crazy and violent as that? Because they're trying to reestablish the good feelings, the chemical cocktail that came from the lust and the satisfaction that they had with getting off with that woman, like that orgasm and the post-orgasm oxytocin hit and all the other good stuff that went along with that is supposed to, evolutionarily speaking, keep men and women together. Oh, we're going to break that apart. Oh, you're gone. Okay, well, guess what? You want to know why guys get addicted to the idea of a woman on a cam women? It's because they're getting that hit. It's something that's from within us. Guys will say, well, that's why you get addicted to pornography. I'm not saying it's not. I would like to see a little more evidence of that. It's certainly a possibility, because we do a lot of crazy shit because we have, chemicals floating in our brains. Well, and God forbid you go and bolster that with, actually illicit substances. So Cole, here's the thing is, this is early game theory, is that you need to be that woman's drug dealer. You need to be her source of indignation, because if you're not, what did I say at the beginning of this show? In the absence of indignation, women will go and actively manufacture indignation for themselves. So if you're not the one that's doing it, if you're not the unpredictable one, if you're not the one that's like, guys will say this to me, like, well, Rollo, it sucks, man, because I always have to be entertaining. I have to be a clown. I want to be a dancing monkey. Well, guess what? If you're going to play the game, if you're going to be involved, again, you can decide that you want to be MGTOW or do whatever the fuck you want to do. But if you're going to be engaging with women, you at some point are going to have to entertain women, and vice versa. Women are going to have to entertain you as well, because once they stop doing that, they become unmarketable. That's why we built this whole social structure, to ensure that when women decide that they're bored of a guy, that there's no repercussions for that. So yeah, you're going to probably have to be her drug dealer. You're going to have to be the guy that's exciting and fun and she wants to be around. And if you can do that on the long term, then that's great. There's a lot of ways to inspire indignation that aren't bad. There's good ways to do it. You just have to figure out how to do it. There's very pro-social ways to do to do indignation, or to at least elicit the again, indignation is an imperfect term for this, but so that's the best way I can say. Yeah, game is the indignation is if you are into game, if you are learning how to interact and engage with women right now, you owe it to yourself to understand what indignation is for women and why it's important to them. So that, and I'll tell you right now, you understand that, you will probably, I would say that's probably about 30 or 40% of understanding game is, understanding women's innate nature. Let me see what else I got here, guys. I'm going to catch up. Give me 1 second. I'll pick up where I was. What do I got here? James. Did I catch up? See, Vinny, Cole. Any difference between feeling indignation and being angry? Oh, sorry, Vinny. Let me catch up to Vinny. Wait. Ah, shit. I lost it. Okay. So Vinny says, Vinny, $5. Thanks, brother. Says, is there any difference between a woman feeling indignation and being angry? It can be. Indignation indignation is sort of a force multiplier, I guess, in that sense. So yeah, indignation can make a woman angry. It can also make her feel attracted. She can also feel lust. She can also feel arousal because of that. She can also feel sad because of that. There's like the emotions that come from, I would almost say like indignation is sort of like a midway point. It's like, what is it that is inspiring her to feel a certain way? They want to feel something. So yeah, is there a difference between, women don't have to be angry to feel indignation. They can just be, you can feel kind of like, I think women can feel pity for a guy, and that's indignation. They can even be empathetic with another woman, because remember, indignation is not just about, oh, I feel this way about this guy. It can be about, oh, I feel bad for her because the girl is living vicariously through another girl, or she can feel, there's a lot of emotions that can come out of something that is indignation inspiring. Let's just say it that way. First last, this is the guy. He says, indignation by definition is the mantra of the political far left, originally driven by the feminist movement. I don't know. By definition is the mantra of indignation is just like, it's prompting in this instance. Again, this is an imperfect term. Okay. As I'm using this is my abstraction here. Okay. Indignation is an abstract term. I'm using as a placeholder term for something else. So if you want to go find, feminists and social Marxists and everything under every rock, please be my guest. James, what did you say here? He says, first item on a Google search for Roosh, Dr. Oz reads War Against Women Rapists. Yeah. And he brought that on himself. But a lot of people, like for a while, Roosh was somebody that I think a lot of the online feminists from, say, the mid 2000s really liked to point fingers at, and it wasn't even just Dr. Oz, it was lots of other things. I remember when Roosh wrote his post about this came in the wake of the UVA rape hoax case, is that if women were really concerned about rape, we would legalize rape on private property. Therefore, and again, this is a thought experiment. I'm not saying this. This is what he said in an essay. That if you were to do something like that, then women would think twice about going to a guy's bedroom, because they say, you know what, if you have sex with me here, you can't claim it was rape. And so what would that do? What effect would that have on women? Well, they wouldn't go on private property with a guy that they would force them to actually think twice about doing something if they didn't think that there was any repercussion for it. It's the same thing with the idea that if a woman becomes pregnant, that the man is not on the hook for child support. Like, if you decide to have this child, you have it on your own, and that's it. If a guy decides he wants to help you, then that's fine. So child support can be voluntary, and the guy can go, okay, it's my kid, I don't want to marry you, but I'll take care of the kid. Okay, that's voluntary, that's fine. But there should be a stipulation that says, well, if a man does not want to have, if a woman can abort a child, then why can a man just simply say, I'm aborting my financial responsibilities to that child? So if you decide to have that kid, you're on your own. What would that do? How would that change? If we change that rule, how would that change women's behavior? I think it would change it pretty significantly. But apparently you can't even throw those thought experiments out there without being called a rape apologist or being called a horrible, evil, sexist misogynist. We're not allowed to think about those things. So. What else? Gus says, by indignation, you seem to mean drama. Drama is part of indignation. Women will create drama for themselves. I think most guys understand. Here's a better way of saying it, guys. Most guys understand indignation as drama. Let's just say that, because I'm sure you guys probably know this. You probably know a girl who says, I get along better with men than I do women, because women are all full of drama. That's women's understanding that women's innate nature is really about drama. It's really about that indignation. It's really about the feelings that come as a result of that. What did you say here? Karen took the kids. I've seen Roosh's latest stream. Not too sure if it's a grift. Let me clarify that for you. It's a grift. Seems genuine to me, but I may be too charitable. Personal loss changes people. Yeah, so does bankruptcy. So let's just leave. I'm not saying he's bankrupt. I'm just saying that, if what is it? You only get what you've got if you keep doing what you've done. So. Okay. So we talked about, we haven't talked about the evolutionary connection. The evolutionary connection is this. If you go back and you look at I got to start here. We got to start with the existential fear. What is women's existential fear? Women's existential fear is that they would become pregnant with a guy who she thought, and this is as basic and knuckleheaded as I can do it. Okay. Women fear to be impregnated by a guy who she thought was alpha and thought was going to stick around, and thought was going to be a good choice to have parental investment with, have sex with that guy, bang that guy, and either potentially get pregnant or actually get pregnant, and then later find out that the guy was just a very good player and that he was a very good, nowadays we'd say he's a manipulator, but he was very good at bypassing her hypergamous filter. The hypergamous filter is sort of women's psychological mechanisms that is used to filter out honest signals from dishonest signals when it comes to men, because it is in men's best interest to ejaculate and evacuate, right? That's unlimited access to unlimited sexuality. In our evolutionary past, if a woman made a bad choice when it came to hypergamy, when it came to having sex with the guy and potentially, if not actually, being impregnated by that guy, and having that kid or carrying that kid to term or becoming pregnant, that could be a death sentence. So that's why the hypergamous filter, which otherwise is known as the female intuition, is something that women have to believe psychologically is infallible. is something that they can rely upon, even though it's not, even though it's very fallible and it can be deceived. But the existential fear is that a clever male, a clever beta male, would represent himself as an alpha. She would have sex with him, have his kid, and then later realize that he's not what he said he was. He's actually a beta. He's actually a chump. He's actually a player. He's actually a guy who she thought was going to stick around, or she thought was going to be an alpha guy, or had some sort of alpha prowess, or some sort of alpha. Again, we're using alpha in an abstract form here. Thought he was an alpha, turns out to be beta, has his kid, and now, as a result, the consequences of that, of her hypergamous filter failing or him bypassing it, is that she is now stuck with his child to rear that child until it is self-sufficient. And in this day and age, that's usually about 18 years old. Didn't used to be. It could have been like 10 or 12 or 13 back in the day. You know, can it run around and hunt and catch fish or something, you know, in the tribal days? Yeah, okay, well, it's self-sufficient. Let's go have another baby. That might be a different thing. But the thing is that, you know, for women carrying a child to term, that could kill a woman. You could just die. So there had to be some sort of fail-safe, or there had to be some sort of psychological mechanism so that women could figure out, like, I want to have a child and I want to be provided for, and I am the weaker of the two sexes in my species. I don't have the upper body strength or the testosterone or the aggression or whatever to be as survivable as a human male. So therefore, we've got to rely on human males to send on us signals. That's what you go and you look at the most of the legislation that has passed with respect to women's hypergamy, that has passed since the sexual revolution, has been to ensure women's survival, to ensure the beta buck's security side of hypergamy. That's what that's about. So that is the existential fear of women, is to have the baby of a beta that she thought was an alpha male. So how does she get to that? How does she prevent that from happening? Well, she has to have a very highly developed filtering system. It's what I call the hypergamous filter. It could be whatever you want to call it. Women will call it their female intuition. And I'm on record as saying this, and this is one of my quotes, is that there's nothing that is more satisfying for a woman than for her to believe that she's figured a guy out based on her feminine intuition. To think that, I know, I got him. I know what he's really a fake, or he's really and that's the thing, in the most subtle ways and in the most exaggerated ways. If a man sends out false signals and a woman figures out what those false signals are, however she does that. Well, today we use the internet, right? But if she figures the guy out, or she suspects, I suspect this guy's not really what he says, and then she has that confirmed, that is very, very satisfying to a woman. Or if the guy is somebody she wants to have sex with and wants to have babies with, and he's not forthcoming with his feelings, and he's not forthcoming with commitment, and he's not forthcoming with anything other than maybe just, you know, nailing it in a wall, there is a certain satisfaction that comes from having figured that guy out. Again, this is that romantic ideal, right? It's the Beauty and the Beast archetype. She wants to figure the guy out. He's a beast. He's untamable. He's an incorrigible bastard, incorrigible bachelor, and he's spinning plates, and he's a PUA, and he's got lots of women, and he's highly desirable, very much pre-selected. But I'm the only woman on planet Earth that has the special ingredient in my personality, in my body, in my femininity, or whatever, that he can't resist, and he ceases to be the beast and he turns into the charming prince. And so he has the capability of being this horrible beast, and he can, like, you know, kill other men. But he's also a sweetheart because he loves only me, and I'm the only one who can tame this. That's really what Tarzan and Jane, that whole thing is about, really. He's a savage, you know, jungle, you know, savage. And he sees Jane, and now he wants to be civilized. It's the same thing with the difference. I've got you guys can go read this for yourself. I've got a good essay called "The Ballad of Clark Kent," and it's how men go from being Superman to being Clark Kent. and what happens to Clark Kent at the end of all that story. So go ahead and read that. You go dig that up on my blog. It's called The Ballad of Clark Kent. You really like that story, but it's the same archetype. It's very satisfying for a woman to be Belle, to figure out the beast, to figure out his secret, to know what his thumb screws are, right? To figure him out, and then to be able to tell her friends, I figured him out. Oh, I knew it. My feminine intuition was correct. It feels good when your suspicions are confirmed, whether that's for the better or for the worse. So if a woman says, "Ha, I knew he," like remember what I was telling you about that one show where the black guy was in Cheaters and he was going to get cheated. They thought he was going to cheat on the girlfriend, and turns out that his girlfriend, was actually the cheater and not him. She's confirmed that he's actually loyal. That's a good feeling, right? That's good. How do we not love that? You know, it's he is who he says. It's confirmed. We figured him out. Our feminine intuition was correct. He's actually a good guy. But you're the faithless skank. You know, now she's going to think about herself. And so we're going from the existential fear of women to the filtration system, the process, the means, the methodology that women use to figure out if the guy is fake or he's not. So there's a fear that he could be fake. There's a fear that he might not be the alpha that she thinks he is. Feminine intuition is based, of course, on covert contracts, covert understanding of men, covert communication. Remember, women are better at figuring out like body language, subcommunications, psychology. They can infer more from a facial gesture than men do. It goes back to the other guy's question here before. He's like, wow, why do I want to have to worry about women? I don't have to figure them out. That's whether you decide that that's what you want to do or that's not. Women are trying to figure you out. If they are interested in you, if they want to find, like guys will always say, well, why is it that, what is it? Women are interested in you, and why can't I get this girl to like me, or how do I go? What was attraction is not a choice, right? Well, yeah, but once you get to that attraction, then that woman's trying to figure out. And I think a lot of times I was saying this back in it was 2 weeks ago, and I said, a lot of times when I was talking about is game even necessary, it was last week actually. Part of that is sometimes guys will get into situations where they're getting IOIs, indicators of interest. They'll be involved in sort of like this game that's being played between him and the girl, and the deal is pretty much done. Like, she wants to have sex with the guy. She wants to have some sort of intimacy with the guy, whether it's a boyfriend. I don't know. However she settles that. And all the guy has to do is not fuck it up. All he has to do is not screw things up. That part where he screws things up is what the hypergamous filter is for. To sort of decide whether, like guys mistakenly think that a woman knows within the first 5 minutes of meeting you whether she will have sex with you or she won't. That is inaccurate. Women know within the first 5 minutes of meeting you whether they won't have sex with you. After that, it's sort of like, okay, the ball's on the table, but if you screw it up and you prove to my hypergamous filter that you're not actually who you say you are, or who I would want you to be, you're not going to play the role, then you could screw things up. A lot of guys do that. They'll say, well, God, I had her in the bag, or I lost frame. Rollo, how do I get frame back? Well, you move on to the next girl is what you do, because because her hypergamous filter figured you out, or likes to think that it did. And so we've got this filtration system, and at the end of it, when that woman confirms that you're good, that you're the guy that she wants to bang, or you're the cheater, or you're the player, or you're the guy who is sending false signals, at the end of that, once a woman comes to that conclusion, there is a chemical rush that comes from figuring that out. That's why I said it's one of the most pleasurable things for women is to at least believe that they've figured a guy out based on their feminine intuition. What do those shows that I was just talking about, what do those books, what do does that fiction, what does that inspire? It inspires the same exact process that I just described. Is you've got a guy who's sitting there, and we're going to say he's the cheater, and all the women in the audience are going, he's the cheater, and they're all feeling that same rush because they figured him out. Ha, we got you. We got you. What is it?
Gotcha, bitch.
Ah, we got you, bitch. You know, I'm glad I have that. So we have the guy right here. It's already set up. It's like playing t-ball, right? It's like I'm gonna hit a home run every time because I'm getting the cheater. We already know he is. We're gonna put him on this hot seat. We're gonna go through this process of pretending like we don't know he's a cheater. We do know he's a cheater, but we're gonna pretend that we don't because we enjoy the process. We enjoy the feeling, or women enjoy the feeling for having figured it out. Oh, my feminine intuition was correct. He really is that way. Or maybe he wasn't. Maybe he was sending honest signals, and they feel something after that too. That you guys were asking me just a minute ago, is it always indignation, always negative? No, it doesn't have to be. But that's the end process of it. So you've got this hypergamous filter that's trying to figure this stuff out. And again, indignation is more than this, but this is the easiest way for you to I think for guys to understand why indignation is a thing. Because they want to feel that. They want to go back to those feelings, and the feelings that come from figuring out something, or from having a guy try to deceive a woman, and then the woman figures it out based on her ability to, like play detective, right? Oh, is he really the guy that I think he is? Let's check the evidence. Let's look at his phone. Let's look at his Instagram. What's the first thing women do when you meet them? Like nowadays, like I can remember when a number close was a big deal. Nowadays it's like, who cares? Nobody cares about number close anymore. Women go straight to your Instagram. I was talking to Andrew Tate about that. Like, why do no Instagram? What did he say? He said it was either him or it was Tristan. I can't remember which one. Instagram is the biggest online dating platform in the world, and nobody knows it because that's what women do. You meet a woman in a club, you meet her anywhere, you meet her in a bookstore, you meet her at Barnes and Noble. Let me go look at his socials and see what he's all about. That's very satisfying to women because they look at that and they go, ha, he really loves puppy dogs. He said he liked puppy dogs. He does love his mom. Here's a few pictures of him with his mom. Or maybe, oh, look at him. He's got 3 girls. I can't believe I almost liked him. That's indignation. That's what they want to feel. Okay, I got 100. Who gave me the $100? My goodness. Thank you very much. Giuseppe Di Fraia. All right, it's time for the Italian section of the Rational Mail today. Let's read Giuseppe Di Fraia's. Is that like an Italian monk? Giuseppe Di Fraia. I'm gonna have to look that up on Google. Maybe that's your real name. What do you think of Me Too and consequences of Me Too? Guess what? We just talked about that yesterday. Me Too did have a valid purpose in finding justice for victims in putting sexual predators in jail. But today, it is causing a lot of issues and catastrophic consequences, like work segregation in the workplace. Giuseppe, man, this is not the right one. There is a whole, actually, it's a 90-minute show I did just yesterday. It is on Ryan Stone's channel. It is called Rule Zero. And we did a show that is called Life After Weinstein. And since you gave me such a very generous super chat here, I will just say the best thing I can tell you right now is go watch that, and you will see. If you want to talk about that, that's probably the best place for you to go and look at it. I do agree with you 100%. I don't think Me Too was ever about bringing justice for victims. I think it was meant to be weaponized, which is where it is right now. And the reason I say that is because Me Too, and sorry for sidetracking you guys here, but he was pretty generous. So the reason I say that is Me Too was a social initiative that was generated in a way, I think, and this is me, I think was meant to be weaponized against like very powerful men. Like it was something that had to come around. And I think that if you go and you look at the history of Me Too, Me Too hashtag, that started in 2006 and nobody knew anything about it until 2016, 2017, somewhere around there, I think is when it started to take off. And then Weinstein gets accused. And now we have an angle to use against people like Brett Kavanaugh for a Supreme Court justice here in the United States. We have this thing called the Supreme Court justice. I don't know if you're actually in Italy, so it's leverage now, and it's sort of backfiring. And you are correct; it is backfiring right now. It's causing segregation, not only in the workplace but in schools. And in some places in churches as well. So Me Too has entered into evangelical Christianity. I have proof, and it's in my book. Particularly if you know the female pastoress, Beth Moore, Me Too has definitely entered into the church space as well. So I think that Me Too was meant from the beginning to be weaponized, and it wasn't what it used to be. Because back when it was started in 2006, it was just supposed to raise awareness of sexual harassment, assault, or whatever, and it snowballed into something greater because we needed something to use against President Trump. They needed something to say, well, you know, he assaulted Stormy Daniels. He did something wrong with his pee-pee, and so we need to, you know, if we're gonna send Harvey up the river, we got to send Trump up the river too. Why do we have a double standard? They're never going to touch Trump with that, anyways. But it's served its purpose, and I think it's probably going to morph into something else later. There you have it. Marcus, thank you for that $5 contribution, my friend. Where are we at right now? We are at the 136 mark. Okay. All right. So let me get back to where I was at. So you've got the female existential fear, which is, I don't want to get with a guy who is not my hypergamous optimized guy. And there's got to be some way to ensure that. And really right up until we shifted or pivoted, I guess, over to a feminine primary social order, that had to be, women had to rely on their instincts. They had to rely on their intuition. That's why they call it feminine intuition, to figure those things out. And as a result of that, there is a pleasurable experience that is the result of having figured out a guy. And even if it's not really them figuring it out, if you can come to the conclusion that she wants to come to, you're still going to trigger those good feelings. And that's where that indignation comes from. So when a woman wants to re-trigger that, or she wants to feel that again, she'll go to a daytime talk show. She'll go, and her girlfriends will be, one of her girlfriends will be being cheated on, or she'll be experiencing indignation firsthand. You will see all of her girlfriends sort of coalesce around her. That's how women really start. That's one of the reasons why women have more complex social networks. And I don't mean like social media. I mean like friendships and girlfriends, because if one girl in the sisterhood is hurting, then we all got to help her out and get behind our girl, right? We gotta be there for her. Whereas if it's a guy and a guy is hurting, that's his personal failure. It's not, we're all going to get together and lift you up, brother. You know, no guy's going to do that, because for men are in a perpetual state of competition for each other, with each other. I'm not saying there's no such thing as teamwork or cooperation, or you don't care about your friend. You do, but you don't do that in the same way that women innately, naturally do that. And the reason they naturally do that is because in our ancestral past, it was a survival adaptation for women who were the gatherers in the hunter-gatherer situation, who were the weaker sex with respect to personal protection and provisioning and everything else, had to find ways to create coalitions amongst themselves for survival. So therefore, women became more adept at communication. They became more adept at cooperation, synchronization. I saw a video the other day. I think it was like they were trying to teach these school children how to march like in sync, you know, like you do in the army or whatever. And they show one side of the classroom, it's the boys, and they're just like all, you know, being boys, right? And then on the opposite side of the classroom, you see the women, the girls, and they're all probably, you know, anywhere from 6 to 8 or 9 years old, and they're in perfect synchronization. And they look at each other and they click. Whereas boys are a little more chaotic, and a lot of guys will say, well, that's just because that's just how they are. That's just how women are. That's how girls are. And they're right. That's not to say that guys can't do it and can't do it better. They can. They just have to learn how to do it. For women, it is an innate proclivity to do those kinds of things. That's why, like little girls, this is fascinating to me. I'm sorry to get sidetracked here a little bit, but this is fascinating to me because when I was taking child psychology, my daughter, my little girl, because she was a little kid back when I was in school, she was my favorite subject. She was my favorite, exam of, behavioral psychology. And one thing I learned in child psychology is that little girls love to do, and my daughter did the same thing. She loves to do they like to do those, the patty cake kind of thing. But like back in my day, that's all it was this, that kind of stuff. And now it's, I mean, it's almost like they're flipping rifles, like the Marines synchronizing flipping rifles. And little girls have some sort of innate proclivity for synchronizing at least hand-eye coordination or whatever, and they know how to do that, and that's something that they enjoy. They naturally enjoy things like, you don't see little boys doing things like that. Little boys are running around, they're being more or less boys want to be competitive with one another. Who's the best, who's the guy you want on your team to play kickball or whatever. It's not to say that boys can't cooperate. We do, but we do it in a different fashion, and our innate proclivities are for competing with one another rather than cooperating with one another. We can do it. We quite often do it, but it's not our natural proclivity. I think it's proclivity for girls. And so as a result of that, there is this, I think girls and women's socialization, acculturation is, and when I talk about the sisterhood, for example, I think that this in the worldwide sense now, because we have a global sexual marketplace, a global marketplace, really global communication marketplace. But I think that today we're seeing this more and more, where we see that women will come to the aid of another woman, even if the woman is in the wrong. Women will still back her up because she's part of the sisterhood. She's part of the girls' club. So you can have someone like Katie Hill who has to resign from her position as a California, was she a congresswoman? I think, she leaves her post, and women come to her aid immediately. I mean, yeah, maybe there's some like political stuff that goes along with that too, but I remember this is one of the things that really got me is during the time when my brother-in-law had killed himself. I can remember talking to women who did not know my sister-in-law personally, and I was like pissed off. I'm like, the dude killed himself, and the body's not even cold in the ground, and she's already with this millionaire guy. And women came to her defense. She must have already just, she was done with him. He killed himself. That's on him, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, holy shit. You don't even know who this person is. You don't know any of the details. You don't know who this woman is. And they were like just random anonymous women, like women I was working with at the time. I was trying to relate the story because that's what you're supposed to do as a guy, right? You're supposed to express your feelings and talk about stuff like this. No, you're not. But that was interesting to me when I would say something, when I would talk about that. And then that's when I realized that the sisterhood doesn't matter who the girl is. It could be on the opposite side of the world. You're still part of the sisterhood, because that's how, in our ancestral past, that's how women survived, was creating teamwork, was creating a sisterhood. And what comes along with that? A lot of pre-selection, I should say. When I talk about pre-selection, or I talk about social proof with respect to intersexual dynamics, a lot of that pre-selection comes from women telling other women, yeah, he's pre-approved. I would bang him. Yeah, okay, well, I guess he's pre-approved, right? So how many girls want to have sex with this guy? Oh, 10? He's really hot. 1? Oh, none? That's how, social proof with respect to intersexual dynamics is a female really a female dynamic. So it's women saying, it's women giving their stamp of approval on a guy. Well, if I wasn't with my man, I'd be with him. Oh well, I guess that makes him. And that's another thing I should say, and I'm glad I came to this too. When I talk about the hypergamous filter, I think that on some level of consciousness, women know that it is not 100% accurate. It can be fooled. It is fooled quite a bit, and that's another source of indignation. If the guy actually is someone that she thinks is acceptable as an intimate partner, is acceptable as an alpha, is acceptable as the guy that she's going to settle down with, and he turns out to be the player, that causes the same indignation. When the hypergamous filter fails, you're still getting that adrenaline rush. You're still getting that chemical cocktail. You don't get the good feelings. She might get the bad feelings, but it doesn't matter. Remember, it doesn't matter the context of where that rush comes from. It only matters that it comes. And so when the guy turns out to be a cad rather than a dad, women come to her aid because they know that their own feminine intuition is not 100% accurate. And that is why you get women cooperating with pre-selection. So if this one girl meets this guy, girl meets boy, boy meets girl, they're getting together, the girl doesn't want to give it up, she doesn't want to have sex with him, she doesn't know if he's all that, or he's really the that he's going to make the partner in the law team instead of being a sandwich artist at Subway. She asks her girlfriends, what do you think of this guy? And it doesn't have to be her personal girlfriends anymore. It can be just like her random girlfriends on Instagram. Now, it used to be she had to go back to the tribe, the family, the girlfriends at high school, whatever, and say, what do you think of Johnny? Well, the girls go, oh, he's a nerd. You wouldn't want to bang him. Well, okay, now he's off. I guess I don't want to have anything to do with him because my filter was inaccurate. Or they go, oh man, he's hot, I would get with him. And pre-selection, bam, it's aiding in the assessment. That's one of the reasons why pickup artists will always go and try to ingratiate themselves to the women that are in the set. And like back in the day, you would be at a club or whatever. This is basic mystery method stuff. You'd be at a club and you were opening a set. You weren't just like, you had a target in that set. And usually a set was a group of women who were out at a club. They're having a good time. They're there to meet guys, usually. And so they're there. You say, okay, hey, ladies, and so you have to be entertaining, not just for the one that's your target in that set. You got to be entertaining for all the girls there. And why? Because they understand, PUAs understand that they have to in some way generate pre-selection. So if I want to get with that one hot blonde that's back there, I got to go through her fat friends first and get their approval before she can come to me. Well, why is that? Why does it work that way? Because the hypergamous filter is inaccurate, and she's got to ingratiate herself or himself with the other girls in that group. That is a small tribe. When you go out to a club, when you go out to school, where guys, whenever you go and you see wherever you see women congregate together, that's the tribe. That's the sisterhood. There could be 3 of them, and that's the sisterhood. There could be 2 of them. That could be one of them, and she could be on social media, and that's the sisterhood. That's what you have. That's what you're up against. That's what you've got to be good with. That you want really good pickup artists, really good master, MPUAs had to be good with the tribe. They had to be good with the sisterhood because there's that hypergamous filter that's trying to, to suss out whether or not you're for real or you're not. All right. Let me move on. Just this dude. Thanks, brother. Jess says, men's idea of love does not serve his nature to scatter seed. Women's idea of love does serve her nature to secure a quality mate. Both sexes get fed the same idea of love from media, but male's nature does not win over, the idea of love. Why? Because because we live in a feminine-centric social order. It's feminine correct. The correct way to love is the way women love. Right? It's correct for them. It's correct for any beta male to adopt a female mating strategy as his own. That's why guys are blue pill. That's why we have, for the last at least, 4 generations, convince guys to be more feminine, to abandon, and here's the operative point here, to abandon their mating strategy and adopt women's mating strategy as their own. That's why. So what happens is, and this is the I've talked about this before, this is the cardinal rule of mating strategies, not cardinal rule of relationships. That's another one. The cardinal rule of mating strategies is that for one sex's mating strategy to succeed, the others has to either be abandoned or it has to be compromised. And the way it works for men right now is that it's no longer about compromise. It used to be. Now it's he must abandon it. It is all about the woman. And how do I know that? Why do I say that? Because when it comes to human reproduction, women control everything 100%. As soon as the sperm leaves your body, women are in control of it all the way to the end. All the way. And, until until your kid's 18. No, actually, pretty much the rest of your life. And she will decide for you where you're going to go, what you're going to do, how you're going to live your life from that moment forward. Is she going to abort it? Is she not going to abort it? Whatever. The fact of the matter is that the way that things work in this gynocentric social order is that you as a man are expected to believe that the right thing is for you to abandon your innate mating strategy, which is unlimited access to unlimited sexuality, which of course coincides with what you just said, which is it's in his nature to scatter seed. Yes, because that's biologically, that's what men are. Is we are selected, right? And K selected as well. So are selected in that they, I hope I'm getting this right. I always confuse these two, but are selected in that it's scattershot. It is in men's best interest to have sex with many women, be available and ready on a moment's notice. That's why we get erections as quick as we do. That's why it's easy to stimulate us. That's why I was just saying a minute ago, sex sells, because that is our innate nature. Anybody want to argue with me, I will simply point you at the state of pornography right now, which is how men in a state of abandoning their innate mating strategy satisfy that. So they're raised to believe that they need to, beta males, but blue pill men are raised to believe that it is their duty as a man to facilitate a woman's hypergamy, to facilitate her way of love. Whereas for him, he's the bad guy. If he jerks off the porn, or if he wants to have sex with more than one woman, then he's the bad guy. And so it puts and train these guys up for generation after generation, and that's how they start to think about those things. So I think I'm getting sidetracked. That's the scattershot nature of men's mating strategy. But when it comes to love, women's concept of love, women's approach to love, and I've already talked about this before, by the way. I've got at least 2 different even podcasts on the difference in love strategies, or instance in love concepts that men and women have. So when we think of women's concept of love, it is opportunistic, meaning she wants the best of the best. She needs better than deserved. So if she's a 6, she doesn't want a 6, she wants a 7, because that would be optimizing her hypergamy, to have a guy that's a little bit better. How that is, whether that's through long-term provisioning, or that's, he's a really hot dude and I want to have alpha fucks beta bucks. You guys can go and suss that out. But the fact of the matter is that hypergamy is not looking for its own thing. It's looking for above that. So how do we apply that to women's concept of love? Well, women will not allow themselves to love a man, or let's say this, they will not allow themselves to emotionally invest themselves in a man who is not at least at or above their own sexual market value. And if they do, it causes a cognitive dissonance in them, where they develop feelings for a guy who is not their optimized hypergamous best, and they've got to find some way to do that. That means either cheating on him, or that means getting rid of him, or that means something. But women don't have any difficulty with cognitive dissonance if it works in favor of optimizing hypergamy. If it is not, if it is a situation where they've invested themselves emotionally in a guy, like a woman's a 6 and they invested themselves in a 5, then there is that cognitive dissonance that has to be solved in some way. Either she, thinks less of herself, or she gets rid of this guy, or it's a problem to be solved at that point. So, I'm reading your thing here. It says women's idea of love does serve her. Yeah, nature. Okay, yeah, of course. Both sexes get fed the same idea. Okay, so that's the thing is the reason why both sexes are taught that men and women have a mutual idea of love is because that mutual ideal is women's ideal, because we live in a feminine primary social order. So the one that we're all supposed to believe, like for instance, we're supposed to believe that love should matter no matter what. It should just be, love matters for the sake of, that's the idealistic kind of love, right? Like it should just matter. But when a woman is not in love with you or does not want to invest herself emotionally in a guy, it's still always going to be her prerogative. So the idea for guys, like guys, for instance, can't, like I'm not going to ever be able to sell a guy on the idea that a woman will love, that a guy should love a woman for being opportunistic in her approach to love, because that seems like that goes against everything that he believes. Like most men are idealists, or innate idealists, and we apply idealism to our concept of love. But if the global concept, if the popular notion is, well, women are all opportunistic, that all that says to that guy is that women don't know how to love. And I get that all the time. Like guys will say, well, my concept of love, idealistic concept of love is the only concept that anyone should ever consider. And if women can't do that, then that means they can't love. No, they can. They just come to love in a different way than you do. But you're going to be taught that women can love you in the way that you think that they should idealistically be able to love you. I know this is getting convoluted. I'm sorry, but that's the global impression. That's what Disney teaches boys and men. Oh, she can love you because like we want to shy away. I think a lot of times we in our feminizing boys these days, and our feminizing them, we like to think that even in the most idealistic respect, women should be able to love them idealistically. And men and boys believing that works in women's favor, because it allows them to figure out who, again, honest signals and dishonest signals. So, not what I was going after. What else do I got here? Carl Bennington says men still love idealistically after unplugging. I think you can. I think you probably should. I don't think that I think as Carl, I don't think that as a guy, you're ever going to get away from your innate idealism. And I would say I don't want you to, and I don't think it's actually possible to get away from that innate idealism. And it's not good to get away from that innate idealism, because yes, idealism in men can be a weakness. It can be a very bad one too. It can be such a weakness that you'll kill yourself. A lot of blue pill guys who get zeroed out, the reason they put a gun to their head is because they can't achieve their ideal world. Now you might say, well, gosh, wouldn't it be better if men were just rational and they didn't have that idealism? Yeah, but that same idealism that can prompt a guy to that is the same idealism that makes him build magnificent cathedrals to God, right? It's the same idealism that puts a man on the moon. So don't look at idealism as an innate bad thing for guys. It's how it's expressed. So I sure as shit hope you don't read my book and think, oh gosh, I'm gloom and doom, forget it, I'm never going to be idealistic ever again. No, but be realistic. Understand that. Like I tell guys this all the time. People will say, well, don't you love Miss TOMASSI? Yeah, I do. And I do love her idealistically as well too. And I'm not going to, I have nothing to apologize for that either. But I also am realistic enough to know that her love for me is premised on something that isn't idealism. It's not premised on what I know up here, that her concept of love is opportunistic and mine's idealistic. And she knows the same too. She knows that that I'm way more sentimental than my wife is. My daughter is a little more sentimental, but like I'm more, but I'm an artist though. I mean, I guess I'm the thinker, and maybe I overthink things a little bit, but she understands that me as a guy, when I think of love, I'm looking at it idealistically with kind of mooning, but I still have to be able to sort of reel that back in and live pragmatically. So she understands that I love her idealistically. I understand she loves me opportunistically. And because we get that, we have a really good relationship. And here's the thing is when one partner, God damn it, I'm getting deep today. When one partner in a relationship doesn't get that, or when one person, like a man or a woman, thinks the other one should love them the way that follow along with their concept of love, things go screwy. Things go bad when that happens. So usually it happens because women don't want to be in a relationship with a guy who is, they think that men should cater to them, right? They think that, again, that's the cardinal rule of relationships. They should be, along with abandoning their, relationships, their sexual strategies, along with abandoning their sexual strategy, that they need to accept that this is how love is actually done. And guys they lose, they lose hope. They lose their, they thought that everything was, once they got married and once they got with this girl, that's how that was going to be, their sappy idealistic love was going to be what keeps them together. And it's not. It's a combination of the two. That's the great thing. Is like women's approach to love being opportunistic is a complement to men's idealistic way of loving. I've got a great essay it's called The Love Experience on my site on the Rational Male. Go read that. If this is your $2 super chat advice, but go read that and you'll understand what I mean when I say that, because men and women are innately complementary to one another. Also, our approaches to love are complementary to one another. It's just that the way we do it right now, we expect one to acquiesce to the other. So the woman thinks, well, he understands opportunistic love, so he's got to accept me the way I am. And guys think the same thing. And they go, well, no, if she can't love me idealistically, then she doesn't really believe in love. No, but when you both understand the other, the nature of the other, you have a really good relationship. So there you go. How's that? We've hit the 2-hour mark, and I think I got to everything. I pretty much got to everything in infidelity. Or I haven't got to infidelity. Well, I did. I talked about infidelity and yeah. Okay. Wow. Okay. I guess I'm good. Let me catch up on these. And I think I got everything. Did I get everybody? I think I got everybody. Don't give me another one later. Sam, did I get everybody? I think I did. I think I got to Gus. Oh, did I get to Gus? There's Gus. How can men make idealistic love work for them? Gus, go and read The Love Experience. You can make it work for you if you understand that women's, if you can understand and accept women's concept of love. Gosh, you guys, I did I not do this? I did this already, like with the different concepts of love. Have I done? I think I did this. Did I not? I don't know. I'll have to go look. I know I've talked about this often enough. This is one of the another thing that I probably should cover. This is one of the key features in book 2, where I talk about love and the differences in approaches to love. The thing, and Gus, this gets to yours and the prior question as well. One of the things that really tears otherwise good relationships apart is man's expectations of love from the girl that he's with is rooted in his idealism, and he believes, because he's been taught his whole life, that women can love him just as much as or in the same way and just as much as he loves her, which is rooted in idealism. A woman, on the other hand, will not allow herself to get into a situation where she will emotionally invest herself in a guy, fall in love with him, unless he in some way meets some criteria of her hypergamy. So she's not going to allow, unless he's really, it doesn't necessarily have to be, oh, he has to be the hottest guy in the world. He just has to have certain qualities to him. And they're not, again, a lot of these aren't necessarily written in stone. Some of them change in priority as a woman gets older. And that's what book 2 was about. But that guy, when I talk about burden of performance, it has a lot to do with women's expectations of who they're going to allow themselves to love and who they're not going to love. So go read The Love Experience, Gus. That's probably the best one I can put out there for you. And Carlos says, great job. And that's where I'm going to end it today, my friends. Thank you for watching the Rational Male in the March 1st edition. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. Hope you guys got some information that you can use from this. I actually hit all of my points. I can't believe it. This was probably the best organized one of these I've done. So the best thing, if you guys want to help me out, of course, you can always join my Patreon. I just received 2 extra overage tickets from Troy. So if you guys are really, we're at 100 right now for the Rule Zero meetup. That is, if you haven't heard about it, it is April 18th. It will be in Las Vegas, Nevada. I will not tell you where it is, but it is at a very nice facility, and it's going to be a really fun weekend for us. It'll be actually the 17th through the 19th, but the conference itself will be on Saturday. So if you're really desperate and you really want to come meet me and you really want to hang out and you want to ask me these questions in person, you can do so. I do have, like I said, I've got 2 overage tickets. I had 3, I sold 1. So I'm down to 2 of my well, actually then I have mine. I sold out of my overage tickets. I have 2 from Troy because he's been gracious enough to hand them over to me and said, if you have anybody that wants to go, here you go. So we are at 100. There's going to be a minimum of 100 guys there. So we're already sold out. So this thing is already sold out. It is March 1st. I should technically charge you $750 for them, but if you get with me this week, I'll still honor the $500. So if you guys want to go, it's only $500, man. So if you're in Vegas already, might be fun for you. If you're close, if you're LA, if you're San Diego, if you are in the West Coast like me, you come down and hang out, man. It'll be great. There's a lot of extra stuff that's going on that won't cost you a dime. You just come and hang out with us. It's just basically a gathering of guys. And again, we're just doing this. This is our trial of this. So if you want to be a part of it, please hit me up. You can either email me or you can you've got to become a Patreon member of mine. So that information is in the description here. So that's the best way you can help me out. If you guys really love this show, the even best way you can do this is do 2 things. One is you can copy and paste this URL into a Twitter post or whatever your social media preference is, put it in there and spread the word about this show and what you learned and what you hated and what you loved. And then you can also leave me a positive review, hopefully, on The Rational Male on Amazon. Always appreciative of 5-star reviews, and that won't cost you anything. So so consider that if you want to support the show. Other than that, you can get my contact information in the description there with all of my support links, as it were. And I will see you guys back on Wednesday. And I might have a guest this one. I'm working out a guest. So we'll see you guys on Wednesday. It will be this time it will be at 1:30. 1:30 my time. So it'll be 4:30 Eastern. So 4:30 Eastern on Wednesday on this channel. So subscribe, hit the alerts, and spread the word. Thank you. Much appreciated. Bye, guys.